Hey, welcome back. You know, it's been a heck of a couple of weeks here at the studio. Recently, we suffered some devastating flooding inside, and a lot of equipment was destroyed, some of it beyond repair, but other pieces do have some hope. Just this week, I was able to restore enough electrical outlets in the studio to be able to have lights and some outlets, so I figured it was time to get to work. Around the same time, a viewer had a great idea. He said, "How about a series, Did It Survive Being Underwater?" And you know what? I think that's a great idea. We're going to turn lemons into lemonade here. We're going to start the first episode of that right now. Today, we're going to tackle my Tandy 1000SX. I acquired this recently after wanting one for 40 years, and I was not going to let this become a casualty of the flood. So it's first on my list. Now, as I mentioned in my update video last week, my insurance isn't covering any damage from the flooding. So it's been on me to try to figure all of this out. My editing PC is trashed as well. It was powered on at the time. Luckily, 2 of the 3 SSDs inside actually survived long enough for me to transfer the contents to another backup drive. You know, I do want to say that I've been overwhelmed by the support of viewers and friends who are helping me recover from this. I want to give a quick shout out to those who have helped thus far, because without them, I would not be producing this video right now. Elliot B., Udo H., David L., an anonymous donor who I'm pretty sure I know who it is, and a huge thank you to Andrew T. His donation alone provided me with enough funds to get going enough to get this video online. I am truly forever grateful. Now, if you're interested in helping, you don't have to, but you can. There's a link above and below where you can help out. All right, so enough talking. Let's get into this Tandy and see if it survived being underwater. So out of all the equipment that I've got laid out that I want to start on first, my Tandy 1000 is definitely the one I want to start with. So the first step, let's go ahead and get the cover off this thing and have a look inside for the first time. Now looking at it, it doesn't look too bad. The water came up and went down pretty quick. We'll go ahead and get this brace off the top here. Start taking apart the brackets for the floppy disk drives. Once we get those out of the way, we'll be able to see the board a little bit better, because I think we're going to have to strip this thing all the way down. A couple of screws on this side. Then a couple of screws on the front. One more screw on the side. These are really pretty easy to get apart. Now we can lift this out, disconnect the cables for both drives and from the power supply, and we'll be able to get these disk drives out of there. Now you can see all the grime that was left. The water was covering the board on this one probably for about 15 to 30 minutes from what I can gather. It came up and went down pretty quick. We'll go ahead and get the 3 screws off the back to get this back panel out of the way, because we'll have to take the power supply out as well. Now that rust on those plates on the back was already there when I got the machine. That's something I'll have to deal with as well. But this back panel should just pop right off of there. There we go. 4 screws here that hold the power supply in place. I reach in there and pull the cable off of the motherboard. So once we get these 4 screws out, we should be able to lift that power supply right out of there. One more screw should have it. Now the power supply I'm going to send off to a friend who's a master at computer power supplies. I'm not even going to attempt that one. But looking at the board for the very first time within the computer, there's a little bit of dirt and grime that's left on there, but overall not too bad a shape. Got to get these little bolts out from around the monitor connection on the back. Start off getting those out. Those are pretty simple. Disconnect the PC speaker. We'll get these screws that are holding the motherboard in. Looks like there's a combination of flathead and Phillips in this, which I thought was kind of strange. We'll go ahead and get this one out. The two in the back. Now, at first glance, I thought maybe this back panel was holding me in there a little bit, so I decided to go ahead and take the two screws out of that. In retrospect, I probably didn't have to take this back panel off, as we'll see here in just a minute. But with it being underwater, probably not a bad idea to take it down and strip it down as much as possible anyway. Alright, so we'll try to get that motherboard out again. And now, looking at it, I can see that there are actually two more screws in the middle of the motherboard that have to come out. So we'll go ahead and get those out of there real quick. Last screw out of this side, and of course we'll drop it, getting it out of there. There we go. And now the whole motherboard slides right out. Now, looking at it out of the computer, I went ahead and took the shield off the bottom of it. It doesn't look nearly as bad as I thought it would. I think I'm going to take some advice that I got in the comments of the last video and try some isopropyl alcohol on it. Water restoration is not my forte, so this is my first time doing anything like this. So I'm sure I'm not doing it right, and I'm sure I've missed a few steps. But it's a learning process for me, just like it was for those of you who know how to do it professionally now. You had to start somewhere, so that's where I'm at with it. A little clean on the front and back with the isopropyl alcohol. Also used a toothbrush on it to get into all the cracks and crevices. I spent a whole lot more time scrubbing on this than it shows in the video. After I was done, I used some compressed air to blow out any remaining isopropyl alcohol. I used actually a couple of cans of compressed air on this project, but I wanted to make sure that there was no alcohol sitting in any of the sockets, behind anything. I wanted to make sure that it was as dry as possible. Then I set the board aside, let it dry, and looked pretty good. I gave it a quick wipe down with a lint-free towel afterwards as well. Now I had to move on to the disk drives, and these were what I was the most afraid of. I figured the motherboard would probably end up being okay, but the disk drives with the stepper motors, the heads, and all of that, I just wasn't sure if I'd be able to actually get these things working again. So I started off to take them out of their caddy so I could get both drives out, have a closer look at them, because they were both underwater as well. Just a few screws on each side holding those in, pretty standard. Then the drives lift out. Now looking at it, Doesn't look too terribly bad. There's no corrosion on anything. The sliding mechanism seemed to free up pretty easily. The motor's still turning, bearings seem okay. So I'm going to start off with some compressed air, blow out anything that may be hiding from me in there, just to try to get the bulk of any dust and dirt out of there. Then I followed it up with a little more compressed air on the bottom side. Then I used a little bit of contact cleaner on everything. I know there's some switches in there. Disk drives are not my forte either, so kind of learning as I go on this one as well. I also ended up using some isopropyl alcohol on swabs with this one as well. That way I could really get into the nooks and crannies on it, get it nice and clean. Now, I had noticed that these drives didn't work really well before the water damage, so I didn't figure I'd be out anything if they didn't work, but I figured I'd give it a try anyway. I went ahead and lubed both rails up as much as I could on the disk drives, repeated the same process on both, and after lubing them up, they slid very easily. No binding, seemed to work okay there. Also cleaned the heads with isopropyl. So now put everything back together. Here's the moment of truth. Well, so far we've got power. It's telling me that the memory checks out, so that's good. Now we'll just wait for it to try to post. These things aren't real quick anyway. And there we go. All right, so far so good. Maybe let's go ahead and get a system disk in this thing. And there we go. Looks like MS-DOS actually loaded up. We'll go ahead and get the date put in here. And in current time. Oh, forgot my colon. We'll try that again. And there we go. Success on the first try. I'm super happy about that. Now, I am really encouraged by the results of this project. This is my first water restoration, so I am absolutely sure that I didn't do it perfectly, and there are probably 1,000 things that I did wrong or didn't do that I should have. Now, I'm learning here. Water damage is not my specialty at all. But for what I was able to do, I'm fired up and I'm ready to tackle the rest. We'll leave that for another episode or two. Now, in the meantime, I'm going to release videos that I already had produced and ready to air, which should keep me a week or two ahead of the game as I try to sort through all the damage here in the studio. Now, I do appreciate each and every one of you for coming along for the ride, and without you, there wouldn't be a reason to carry on. So I'm grateful you chose to spend this time with me in my waterlogged studio. Until next time, happy listening and computing.